Do we believe Jagmeet Singh? Do we believe Justin Trudeau in saying they don't want and won't be pushing for a spring election?
Well, I think for Jagmeet Singh, we can believe what he's saying because the fact of the matter is the New Democrats are still rebuilding. Their numbers are kind of sputtering in terms of ballot support. They still need to rebuild a war chest. So it's not surprising that he's kind of espousing not having an election while the pandemic is on. You know, Rachel, back in the fall and in December, when the Liberals had about a 10 percentage point lead, I thought they might want an election, not saying that they would get the spring election that they want, but they would want one because they had a significant advantage over the Conservatives. But we've seen in January and parts of February, especially, that that Liberal advantage, which was a double-digit advantage, kind of dissipate to about 6 points. So I'm not sure. Justin Trudeau would like an election if the vaccines rolled out well. And to your point, if he can meet or beat his target of September, then he'll probably be priming for some sort of election in the fall. But with the numbers fragile right now, with vaccinations up in the air, the economy still sputtering along, I would say probably not this spring, at least unless there's some kind of crazy thing that happens that turns the numbers on their head.
Right. And I think there's one other aspect to this, and it's totally nerdy, I will admit, but it's crucial. The federal government has put forward legislation to change the Canada Elections Act to address the possibility of a pandemic election. So these are changes like allowing weekend voting, expanding mail-in balloting, and things like this that would be, I would say, probably essential in order to be able to run an election during a pandemic. Elections Canada has said they could do it in some form without these changes, but it would certainly build more confidence and probably avoid a situation like what we've seen unfold in Newfoundland, where the pandemic situation changes quickly and an entire election kind of gets thrown haywire. So that bill is still at second reading. I'm pretty sure it was being debated this week. Still a long way to go before that is law. So I think as long as that's on the books and not moving, we're probably okay in terms of the runway for us to all get our electioneering gears in motion.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And, you know, the thing is, in 2020, there were some provincial elections that for all intents and purposes went without a hitch. But to your point, this is the pandemic, or the Newfoundland and Labrador election, has slammed up against the pandemic. And what started off is maybe this provincial election will be kind of like the other ones. It'll happen and everything will be okay. Turned seriously southward, so to speak, with flare-ups and outbreaks. And it shows that things can change between the first day of the election and like 2 weeks in, when there could be an outbreak. And, you know, even with all the things that Elections Canada is going to introduce, any election will still be susceptible to a new breakout, to something happening that could significantly disrupt things.
Yeah, and I think that's right. And why you're looking at the timing for a fall being more likely with vaccines. If the Prime Minister holds true and everyone is vaccinated by the end of September, then there would be an opportune window there to still go to the polls in the same kind of season, at least fall, as we see in normal general elections. And yes, of course, there's always going to be those variables, but with most people vaccinated, we would ideally be in a situation where we're not going to be seeing the same kind of turn of events so quickly as we're seeing now. But that's also going to have to be a well-timed writ drop, because if we get too far past everyone being vaccinated, I think the national conversation is going to switch to post-pandemic accountability. And I think the Prime Minister is going to want to get in at a time where he's still riding high from the vaccine finish line, I guess we could say, before people start to dig into, in even more concentrated way, the hard conversations about what went wrong and what they could have done a lot better over the last year.
Yeah, and I add, Rachel, the risk, that's definitely a top risk, the issue of accountability and transparency and what was done. The second risk is that at some point the stimulus is going to run out, or at least be less than it is today, or less generous. And as soon as that happens, we're actually going to see the real impact and devastation that the pandemic will have wrought on the economy, because there are a lot of sectors that are hurting, a lot of Canadians that are still at home getting support from the government, and who knows whether their jobs will be there come the fall or after that.